Airlines. Work hard, fly right.
As the story goes, Neil Peart of the band Rush once remarked that he was not as good a drummer as Stewart Copeland. That's a hefty compliment indeed, considering both are among the most well-respected and influential drummers in rock and roll. But aside from drumming for the Police, Copeland is an accomplished composer and most recently an author. Stewart Copeland joins us via Skype from New York to tell us about his new sort of autobiography, sort of collection of stories, Strange Things Happen. Stewart, it's a great honor to have you with us. I have to confess, one of my first albums was Walking on the Moon.
Oh, very good. That kind of dates you.
It does, horribly, doesn't it? I know.
Well, it dates you very well compared to me, though.
Oh, okay, well, thank you. It's all relative, right?
Yes.
So we read Strange Things Happen, and it's fascinating because we see what a truly remarkable life you've led beyond, of course, being in one of the most famous bands of all time and scoring dozens of films and TV shows. We learned that your dad was in the CIA and you were schooled in the Middle East and the UK, and you play a mean game of polo and you have 7 kids. So, Stewart, how did you decide what to include in the book with all of that material to draw on?
Well, I just started writing all the fun stories, the ones that go down well at the dinner table, mainly. It's technically an autobiography, but I left out all the boring bits. You know, I was born here, I went to school there, and just cut to the war stories, the fun parts.
Oh, I like
and
that.
Of course, now I'm hearing about all the parts that I didn't put in, but it's a pretty fat book anyway.
It certainly is, and you can never make all the people happy all the time. I guess, do all 3 members of the Police now have books now?
Yes, we do. In fact, the other 2 wrote excellently. Sting wrote about the first years of the Police, and then he kind of left off when it was started to happen. And then Andy Summers wrote his book, altogether far too candid account of the glory years. And I also covered the glory years of my little film, Everyone Stares. And so that kind of let me off having to get into that. But the last third of the book is all Police all the time, the reunion tour, which is a story that has not been told until now.
Now that was pretty fascinating to read about because fans were ecstatic about it. You in the book talk about the tensions in the band, particularly between you and Sting. You talk about being in a, quote, whiteout of fury during one show. And of course, we all remember the blog post from Vancouver where you criticized the band and you said everybody took that too seriously.
Oh, that was all written in fun with love in my heart.
Ah, is it all love though? I mean, what about this tension?
Oh, totally. Socially, we get along really well. We have a very strong bond between the 3 of us. It's just when it gets to the music, where we have wildly divergent views about what music is for, let alone how it should be made. But we discovered something on the reunion tour, which is that we're good for each other in a horrible, horrible, painful kind of way, like cod liver oil. If it wasn't for Stingo telling me to shut up every now and then, and for me prodding him in the back of the head, it wouldn't be the Police. It's that tension that makes our band what it is. And it doesn't make it any fun, but fortunately we have a very low stamina for outrage. And within 20 minutes we're hugging and kissing again.
Oh, isn't that lovely? So lots of affection there as you detail in the book. And on that note, you have written, if you love somebody, set them free in regards to possible future performances together as the Police. So is
That's
that
actually
it?
a Sting line.
That is a Sting line. We recognize that line. Yes.
Yes.
Those of us who are
I probably think the song's about me.
So no more tours?
Who knows? I mean, a Police tour is not what artists normally do. Artists normally are focused on new material, new artistic endeavors, and that's what artists do. But in the case of a classic band like ours, a concert isn't that. It's something completely different. It's a ceremony of known songs, and these songs have such power because they're woven into people's lives. Even if you don't like the songs, you've been stuck with them coming over the airwaves for 20 years. So it's an amazing thing playing in a Police concert. It really is. There's nothing else like it in the world. But right now, we're done. Well,
Stewart, you were talking there about focusing on your current projects, and you've had this full second career post-Police, scoring more than 60 films and TV shows, as we say, 3 ballets, 3 operas. I was interested to read in your book that when you scored your first film, Rumble Fish, for Francis Coppola, you said you had absolutely no idea how to score a movie, and then your first opera, The Crusaders, came as the result of a joke. You seem pretty fearless. Are you always undaunted by
Foolish.
challenges? Foolish, you say,
Foolhardy.
not fearless.
Well, you know, the cool thing about not knowing what you're doing is, particularly in the arts, I mean, in brain surgery, you sort of have to know what you're doing, and virginity is no virtue. But in art, it is. When it comes to film scoring, if you don't know what you're doing and you have to invent the wheel for yourself, you're probably going to come up with a new way of doing it. And right or wrong, the other better word for that is revolutionary.
Okay, well, you sound very kind of humble here. I do have to draw your attention to a quote you have in the book where you say, "There's no greater glow of narcissistic validation than receiving my own art. I slay myself. Always have, and I hope I always will." That sounds pretty confident.
You know, you can't be an artist unless you're susceptible to your own art. Maybe call it narcissistic. I'm sure that's the best word for it. But really, if you don't appreciate your own stuff, then go get a job doing something else. And I guess the fear that we all have is that one day we will not be slain by our own art.
Well, you continue to reinvent yourself. You've had this recent project composing the score for and narrating Ben-Hur Live, which many people will know premiered earlier this month in London. This is an absolute spectacular. Wondering how an experience like this compares to, say, performing as the police, which you have said leaves you limp and spent.
Well, this gig was a lot easier for me. All I had to do is, I had to write 2 hours of epic music. I recorded the orchestra in Slovakia, noodly bits in Istanbul, and creating the music was a big, big task. But the actual job on stage was great. There's 300 people, as you can see, frothing around the stage there. And all I had to do was walk around importantly and tell the story. And I even got to ride a horse at one point.
Which you are very good at, right? You played polo when you were in school at Millfield and still do?
Not anymore. I traded my horses in for children. And you know what? I have to say, in many ways, children are far better than horses.
In which ways?
Well, the vet bills are cheaper, I guess.
I don't know, Stewart.
Children love me more than my horses did, I think.
Well, that's a lot of love in your household, because you've got 7 kids, right?
Yes.
That's
most of them are grown up now in their 20s, and they're out carving their way through the world. But I've still got my little girls at home with me.
And you write about some of these experiences with your family and how strange things still happen, you know, in keeping with the title of your book, like Gene Simmons being the dad who organizes music for your school fundraiser. So
well, you know, I came that close. I've had a few adventures in my life that I value, but the one that just escaped me is that, you know, Paul Stanley and Gene Simmons had kids in our school, and at the class camping trip, I just wasn't there the day that I could have sat around the campfire singing Puff the Magic Dragon with Kiss. You know, I'm just going to have to live another life, see if I can get around to that one.
It sounds like you might need another life to pack in everything that you might want to do. I'm wondering if, as you look back and you consider how far you've come, whether you think you've actually managed to find a balance between the ordinary that you've said you were seeking and the extraordinary, which is the life that you've lived.
Well, when you're in a band, you are physically yourself the product. You are the beans inside the can. But that's only in bands. You know, in film composing and in other artistic endeavors, your picture isn't the product. And so you can be a lot more anonymous. And it's actually preferable life to be anonymous. It's actually kind of a pain in the neck to be a glowing neon tube walking down the street. Anonymity has a lot going for it.
Yes, you do talk about that, about no longer being anonymous as being inconvenient but necessary.
Oh, I'm anonymous now.
You're anonymous now? I don't think so.
This interview probably isn't helping much, but I'm more or less anonymous these days.
Yeah, I'm afraid, it's all out there, but I think it already was. Oh, Stewart Copeland, it has been such a pleasure to chat with you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.